I'm going to call this the Aussie's Guide to Being Shot Dead Clean in the Water. Yesterday, that's a '04 Hilux, pulled into Mitre 10, as you do. I went to come outside, and lo and behold, I became an NRMA member. And I've never had a problem in my life before yesterday. Shot dead in the water. You can't start the bastards. Anyway, NRMA turned up, and he gets some start your bastard out, and whack whack, and he's like, your fuel pump's dead, bud. Not doing anything here. So we're talking about survivally. We're in a situation because I've got no one here. And I was like, cool. So I've just been shot dead in the water and I've got no one. And if I can't get this dealt with, I've got a really poor situation ahead of me. So, you jump on eBay, take you 2 weeks to get a fuel pump from there. Called up the local people. Could have one by Monday. That's still no good. I called up Repco. Unbelievable. I'm going to really give Repco credit where credit is due here. Turns out Repco home deliver, don't they? So I called them up and I gave them my registration number. They put it in the system and they had a look. They had the fuel pump there. Unbelievable. So whilst I was sitting waiting for the tow truck to turn up, they jumped in their car, the home delivery car, and they bought the fuel pump down for us. So methodically, I had the breakdown. NRMA said it couldn't work. They said what I thought. It was the fuel pump. I had the fuel pump turn up. Tow truck turned up. Now, when I got the tow truck out to the house, these are the things you need to be thinking about whilst you're getting ready to do it yourself, because I would never have attempted to do this bastard if I didn't have the gear. This is, mechanic shop with at least 2 mechanics, maybe 3 or 4, because you got to move the bloody thing. So you need to understand your environment, where you're potentially going to do it. You're going to, so you've got to get the vehicle to your home. And with the truck, you've got to ask them to put it somewhere where you're going to be able to reverse it into where it is you want to work on it. And I had to figure out what shed I'm going to work on because, it's going to be raining for the next fortnight. So when I got mine here, I got them to drop it here. And I thought that'd be a good thing. It got reversed onto the bloody truck, didn't it? So I had to get the tractor out, thank goodness. But before I got the tractor, so I was saying, if I didn't have the gear, I would not have performed this, because it's like extracting wisdom teeth on a vehicle. So with the tractor, I went and got the firefighter with the firefighter trailer, and I blew down all the mud underneath the vehicle and I got it clean. That's what I did first. I then got the tractor with the tow chain, and myself and I, handbrake off once the chain was on it, pulled the vehicle just past that intersection there, and then got out, had to, there's no power steering when you can't start them. And they're 2.5 ton. It's very hard to push the bloody thing. So I was like, you know what? I can't waste my energy here. So then I got the tractor, went around, and then parked up there with it, put the chain on it, pulled it around. And then once I pulled it around and I could start to get it moving back down to here, so that we could start coming down to here, that's when you got to jump in quick, smart. You're in reverse and you want to get the door shut, handbrake off. You want to be on your best driving game. Anyway, this is a downhill run here, but it turns out it's a little bit uphill into the shed, and again, it's hard going pushing. So I got it reasonable. First and foremost, before everything else, so I cleaned up the workshop floor, and I got it so I could get the thing back in there. Anyway, so I got it just outside that shed. Couldn't push the bastard, it was uphill. So then what I did, because I don't like, putting marks on my vehicle, that I put that on the front of the bull bar and I got my four-wheel drive quad bike and I pushed it the rest of the way. Bit by bit, you'd push it, brakes on, go in, check where you're at, move the steering wheel. Anyway, so once it was in, I was happy with the position, all is well. You're going to listen to that story that I've just told you and think about what a bastard it was and how much of a bastard it could be for you if you don't have a tractor and things are uphill. So why I'm telling you this is, think about, if your fuel pump has gone, are you going to be towed up forward or backwards on the truck? I'm giving you the captain hindsight of what should have happened potentially to make it easier, because we've all got the places where we're going to work on things. So my life would have flowed a lot easier if it had gone on backwards. I didn't know it at the time. Sorry, if it went on forwards, not backwards. Anyway, so got to turn around and got it into the shed. Next, I wouldn't have touched this if I didn't have the tools. Right? That will make your life a lot easier. 12 mil and 10 mil. The 12 mil is for the bash plate, and then it's for the fuel tank. The 10 mil is for the 3 bolts that are around the fuel cap. Before you take it off though, again, what a bastard. I was stuck with 3/4 of a tank of fuel. Isn't that cute? Anyway, so these are things I'm telling you because I had the gear. I drained the fuel tank, but I didn't just drop it on the ground. So I got, I've got a load of, those 10-litre water bottles that you get from, Aldi's or Woolies or whatever. These things, them. So I had a load spare of them, thank goodness, for other reasons, and I filled up 6 of them, but I didn't fill them. I had a good 20-litre bucket. You could use a 10-litre bucket. I had a 20-litre bucket, and I put the bucket under the tank, dropped out 10 litres at a time, siphoned it into the bottles. So there was no waste, but obviously I put rubber gloves on as well so I didn't get any fuel on my hands, because the last thing you want to do is smell like a petrol sniffer, because you'll be sniffing it for the next 3 days. So next, you're like, is my fuel going to dump out and go everywhere, and am I going to get fuel all over me if I drop the fuel out of the tank? No. The secret is, so it's a 17 mil on these Hiluxes. It's actually in quite loose because it's sealed with rubber. So you loosen it and you'll start pulling it off and you're like, fucking, here we go. So is it dangerous to drop the fuel? No. It's just like, if we die, we die. The reason why if we die, we die is when you pull that nut, have the key or have the fuel cap unlocked, when you pull the nut out, make sure you hold on to it, don't let it go. This is why you've got the gloves on. Pull it down, there's an airlock in it, and it will only drop 200 to 300 mils at a time as it's trying to find air. So when you're playing with the plug, with the bung screw, have the cap shut, and then unlock it and open it, and then it drops out. And so then, as the bucket nearly gets full, as you can see, it's time to get back underneath there and put the screw back in, shut the cap, and then it boom, boom. As it gets close to one of those air recapitulations, put the plug back in, close it. And don't be lazy, get it reasonably tight, because you don't need fuel dropping everywhere. Next, so what we've done so far with preparation, so luckily I had rubber mats to put underneath the vehicle everywhere because it was a bastard. Hindsight speaking, I didn't do this until later. So we've emptied the fuel tank, we've washed underneath the vehicle. I pulled the spare tyre out and I went and cleaned it with the firefighter. That didn't happen immediately. What I'm saying is straight off the bat, get the spare tire out of the way, because you then have access. And it's one of your greater access. It's the ones that you need to get in underneath the vehicle to be able to see over the top with what's going on where. So your tank's empty. That makes life very, very easy. Next, these are just things to have a look at. Hydraulic jack, and I put that on top of it as a protectant underneath the tank. So lift the hydraulic jack until it's holding the weight and leave it in place. Then get the 12 mil, and I needed an extension bar. And again, I had the dog at one point trying to lay around on me, so I had to go and lock them up. Get the bash plate off first. That bastard was dirty, so I went and took that to the firefighter unit and blew the guts out of that, so it's clean. And then undid the 6 bolts for the actual fuel tank itself. They're a little bit harder to reach, and you'll need the extension bar. And so, first and foremost for me, it was a breeze because I've got the rattle gun. And you really want to consider getting one of those. Especially, I work on like farming implements and whatnot, and I can do half-day jobs in 15 minutes because I've got that, because it's just whack, gets it off we go. You think cordless drills are good? Have a cordless for your sockets. Life will never be the same again. I've got 2 separate ones. I've got a Milwaukee one, like proper, and I've got that for my center pivots and whatnot, because I've got 32 mil bolts. So, and some of them are 30, 40 years old. And with that, it has about 1,400 foot-pound torque, so it whacks them off like life's normal, so I don't need to grind nuts and bolts off anymore. Anyway, back to it. So you've got the bash plate off, you've got the bolts off for the fuel tank, and the fuel tank is now loose. Have a bucket to put your screws into. So now the fuel tank's loose, then get your 10 mil to loosen these 3. Once they're loose, then take your fuel cap off. Now, don't lower your tank, bang, straight to the ground. See, I was lucky because it was empty. You're going to do yourself a world of favours not having 60 to 70 litres to have to try and juggle with one arm. It makes life a lot easier. So use the hydraulics to slightly lower the tank, gently, gently, gently. And you want to get it low enough so you can actually see what's happening on the top of the tank. See, this is loose, so this is just going to pull down. Again, the top of the tank's going to be dirty and full of mud. So you're going to want to have a rag, a brush, etc. And you're going to want to clean the top of a few things so you can actually see what's going on. Now, these, number them. I had tags, and I've got tags underneath the vehicle, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. But these are things we need to understand. So you've got 3, 2, 3. That is where the fun will start for you. It took me nearly an hour and a half to undo. Why? Was it cross-threaded? No, it's a tapered thread. It's not tapered, it's a straight thread. So obviously they put a straight thread into it to ensure that it doesn't undo, because that's a it's a flared pipe that goes onto the flexible pipe underneath the vehicle. So they were easy enough. You just push them in, move them back, and then use your pliers to just slightly dislodge it, then get it off. This one here though, you've got no option but to undo it. And once you undo it, the other side moves around as well, but you're going to need a 17 mil and a 14 mil. And the problem is with the 14 mil, it's so tight you may actually start to round it. I ended up getting my footprint, so I didn't round anything else. And it's a shame because I'll be able to get it back together, but that was the one. Your sense of humour will disappear because it's going to be a bastard of the job. This is me giving you the if you do this, your life might not be as mediocre as what my experience was laying with mosquitoes. Right? So I got 3 different sets of those. I had to get to those in the end just to finish the job off, because I never thought a thread could feel so long and take so long to undo. So with that, I had a spare one of these. Something to consider as you're lying under the vehicle, having to undo that straight thread. You're going to need somewhere to rest your head so you don't end up with a bad neck from constantly having to look up, do your few movements, and then rest your neck. Because it might take you an hour and a half if it's slightly seized. So once that's undone, what we're after next is, you'll see these two need to be undone. I want to give you a look at these because yours might be different. But if you can see how these function, you're either going to have to push in and they will dislodge. What I did for this one is it pushed in and it just dislodged and off it went. That one needed to be pushed down, but because it was full of mud, I had to grab either side of it with my multi-grips, loosen until it finally dislodged. Be so careful of your wiring. The wiring is almost more important than the actual pipes that are going into the tank. So with this wire, I accessed it there between the exhaust I accessed it just there, and I think it was between the tank and the spring, release spring, and there's enough space to be able to see that, and you'll just reach in there, press the little notch in, and it'll dislodge. That back one is the bastard, and that's the one that you need to get undone because you don't want to rip your wires or like pull them out of their joints. This one, it just, because of the mud and everything, and it didn't matter how clean I'd had it. Once I got in there with the multi-grips, and like obviously I had to use a screwdriver to push that down, but they started to dislodge, and then I got it out. Once these are out, that's when you lower the the hydraulic lift. Lower that, get it out of the way. You're gonna have to move it around a little bit to get it down. Once it hits the floor, then pull it out. Our molar is dislodged. Putting it back together is fine, and that's why I thought I'm just going to do how to get it out. Because putting it back together is going to pull it apart, replace the components, put it back together, get it back into place. It took me half a day, and I was at it gently, but thoroughly, to get it down so I didn't root the threads. So I'm definitely going to blast the guts out of that and get it clean. I'm going to flush it because obviously I got told by the tow truck driver, of all things, all this rain, there are some service stations, fortunately or un, where water is getting into their fuel. So I'm not saying be careful about going where you go to get your fuel, but just you want to make sure that they've got good foundations. You want to make sure that where you get your fuel from, because you'll have your own due diligence to do now. We have to be careful about what fuel we put in our vehicles because I'm not the only one that's had this happen. There is water getting into petrol because of the weather at the moment. Anyway, I don't want to sort of go too far into that, but just we want to be careful where we get our fuel from. We want to make sure that when we look at the ground, do they have good foundations or does it look like they've got water puddling in their driveways? And I'm not trying to put anyone out of business, but we need to be careful because they're going to be putting everyone out of business with water and fuel. So back to that, now the tank's out, the wisdom tooth dislodged. I'll clean that tank, I'll pull that off gently, replace components, put it back in, get it back into place, get it tested. First of all, would I have attempted this if I didn't have the gear? No. I don't even know if I would have attempted it if I didn't have the rattle gun, to be honest with you. It was hard enough, and you need to stay extremely patient because it will test you to within an inch of your patience. The mud and the dirt and everything from the driving we've been doing, we need to clean everything as we get it off, because when we put it back in, we don't need to be frigging around with dirt on any of our nuts and bolts. So, and I'd like to think once this goes back up, it will see it out, the vehicle out. Now, for these, because of the times that we live in, would you believe that if I said to you that each one of the tanks of fuel that, or the buckets of fuel that I put into the bottles, there was sludge in it? So taking a bash plate off to get to the sump plug on the fuel tank is as hard as getting to the sump plug on the oil tank. I think I'm at the point right now where I can comfortably say saying 20,000 kilometers, but I would definitely, as it pops up, maybe once a year or something like that, if you're looking to keep your vehicle going because it's a workhorse, pull the bash plate off and empty the fuel tank. I'd do it with only 10 litres in the tank though, not with a 3/4 a tank of fuel. I don't think it's a bad practice because dirty fuel is a problem, and I may have been dealing with dirty fuel. I may have been dealing with a blown pump. I may have been dealing with a bad filter. I may have been dealing with everything buggered, to be honest with you. And this may have been going on for a while, but it all caught up, and hopefully it's fixed once I get it put back in. But for preventative maintenance next time, there it is. That's what we're looking for. Instead of having to do these are jobs you only want to do 1 or 2 of these in your lifetime. In order to avoid doing this, unless you have to, preventative maintenance. And the preventative maintenance for this would be drop the tank every year or so. Just drop it out, filter the stuff going back in there, or have a jerry can spare and put fresh fuel in it. And whatever you do with the other stuff, like filter it through and put it in the lawnmower or something, I don't know. But just, everything's gone wrong at the moment. I can't believe I've got new spotlights, new alternator, new plugs, new leads. Not just leads, new coils, new power steering pump. But I didn't need an alternator and a power steering pump. There was a noise being made and I thought it was one or the other. I had to replace the pair to realise that it was the air compressor. So it's actually not a bad thing that this vehicle's had a bit of an upgrade, and I think it happened the way that it did. So I've got new fuel pumps, and as I was saying, things happen in threes. I don't know. Anyway, did I need new spotties? No, it just turned out there was a wire that was slightly burnt out in behind the battery that I couldn't see. So there's nothing wrong with new spotties. It's nice to be able to have daylight when you're driving along at night. But I don't think I'm the only one to have gone through this. I think those of you out there, we have our vehicle and it's our workhorse. It's literally our life. I really think we need to get ahead of firefighting and get into a preventative maintenance scheme with our vehicles. So if we find we're starting to get fuel problems, when you got to go and get like a fuel cleaner and injector cleaner, I think that's when we need to empty the tank. We need to keep our oil changes up. We need to make sure that we're using protecting oil for older engines. The next thing will be a timing belt. I doubt it because that was just done when I got it, thank goodness. But I would think it to be sacrilege to have driven this and got so much good life out of it, to then, just because it's starting to play up, not fix it. They are as much a part of the family as pets. So, it's starting to look like a new vehicle again with all the gear that I've put in it. And maybe I should get another few years out of it before we have a problem again. But I think with those few years, I think what I will do this time around is, instead of letting it all go to where it all has to be replaced at once, work with the manufacturer guidelines. If it's only got, if it's only got 50,000 Ks in it, replace it then. Get it back to what you would call service manual, essentially. Get it serviceable again. Why had I not been using mechanics? I don't know. Something annoys me about paying $110 for an hour for someone to be changing your oil. It annoys me, to be honest with you. And then you got to wait 4 weeks for that privilege. So you got to wait 4 weeks for the privilege of paying $110 an hour for someone to undo nuts and bolts with shit that's actually quite easy to do. So obviously you got to suffer doing your own mechanic work yourself, but either that or start getting it serviced by mechanics and pay more than the price of the vehicle itself within, say, 6 to 12 months time. So this is for bush mechanics. Are we trying to keep our vehicles going and keep costs down? Of course we are. Can we afford to take into mechanics? Of course we can. Are we going to? No. Because, I'm not saying we're strong and independent, but we can actually do it just as good ourselves. So, I hope this has helped. Extracting the molar. Make sure you've got the gear. Let me just give you a look at what I had one more time. So I used a 19 and a 14. I actually had to use this instead of this 10 and a 12 mil. You want an extension bar. That is what I needed for the electricals in the end, and this. Plus I had this and some rags for cleaning, and then just, they were there. I just think for shits and giggles. I had 2 work lights, but I've got them on the charger at the moment. Plus the bottles to fill up 10 of the bottles, plus the bucket, plus the hydraulic lift. What a bastard of a job. Anyway, I hope this has helped, and best of luck with it. Remember, gently, don't drop anything too quick. Once you've got these 3 loosened, only drop it, say, 1 inch just to get it to come down. Get your electricals free, and it may be that one you've got to access it this side of the vehicle, and that one you've got to access it from the back end, but you took the spare tire out. Once they're dislodged, then get it down, get it out, and just treat them as 2 separate jobs. Treat the extraction as job number 1, and then probably walk away from it for the day, and then go back and just do the replacement work the next day when you're fresh in mind. Because the long and short of it is, my sense of humor and everything had disappeared by the end of that job, because it was actually quite a hard task to do. It was very exciting to get it out, and I didn't realize I'd be excited because it was tough. But it definitely isn't something I would wish upon anyone to have to do for themselves. So these are those jobs that no one wants to have to do, but sometimes we have to. I hope this has helped. I'm not saying this is the Bible of it, but in a sense, I think it would be the closest thing online at the moment to be able to just listen to what I had to go through. So you're talking one-man banders. Look at all my mistakes and make yours better. If you get it on the back of the tow truck, is it going to be on the right direction? Because if you don't have the tractor that I had. So if you don't have the tractor to be able to do the towing, what's going to give you the best advantage to get it on the back of the truck and then dropped into where you've got to have it? How are you going to ensure that you're going to get it into the shed with one go and not have to keep pushing? Because I then had to get the 4-wheel drive quad bike to do the pushing. Do you have the tools and the gear for it? If you don't have these things, you're going to have a tough time, and it might take you a few days to get the job done. That's all I'm trying to say. And I would not have attempted it if I didn't have the gear. And even though I had the gear, it was tough. So just gently. And it's not a painful process. And I would hope that this helps you so that you don't have to go through the pain that I went through to do it. Anyway, I hope you have a really good day. Best of luck with it. Bye for now.